The 5th Indian Infantry Division was an infantry division of the Indian Army during World War II which fought in several theatres of war and was nicknamed the Ball of Fire. It was one of the few Allied divisions to fight three major enemy armies: Italian, German, and Japanese. The division was raised in 1939 in Secunderabad with 2 brigades under command. In 1940 the 5th Indian Division moved to Sudan and took under command 3 British infantry battalions stationed there and was reorganised into 3 brigades of 3 battalions each. The division fought in the East African Campaign in Eritrea and Ethiopia during 1940 and 1941, thence moving to Egypt, Cyprus and Iraq. In 1942 the division was heavily engaged in the Western Desert Campaign and the First Battle of El Alamein. From late 1943 to the Japanese surrender in August 1945 it fought continuously from India through the length of Burma. After the end of the war, it was the first unit into Singapore and then fought pro-independence forces in eastern Java. History. The division was raised at Secunderabad in India from the Deccan district headquarters, with 2 brigades of 3 Indian infantry battalions each. It moved to the Sudan in 1940 and was joined by 3 British infantry battalions already there. The division was reorganised into 3 brigades each with 1 British and 2 Indian battalions. The divisional sign of a red circle on a black background, which gave the division its nickname, was selected after the first selection of a boar's head was deemed offensive to Muslim soldiers and every other animal suggested had already been selected by other newly raised divisions. Between 1940 and 1941 the 5th Division was involved in the campaign in East Africa, after periods in Egypt, Cyprus and Syria. By 1942 it was involved in the fighting in the Western Desert of North Africa and the withdrawal of the Allied troops to El Alamein. By late 1943 the 5th Division had shipped to India and took part in the campaign in Burma, initially deployed to the Arakan Front. After the Japanese had been defeated in the Battle of the Admin Box, the division was airlifted north to take part in the Battle of Imphal and the Battle of Kohima. Thereafter, the division was almost constantly involved in the advance through central Burma until fighting ended with the Japanese surrender in August 1945. After the end of the war, it was the first unit into Singapore and then fought pro-independence forces in eastern Java while protecting the recovery of Allied prisoners of war who had been incarcerated there. Lord Louis Mountbatten wrote in his memoirs paying tribute to the division, whose record was second to none, saying, "East African Campaign, the 5th Indian Division, under the command of Major General Louis Heath and comprising only 2 brigades at the time, was sent from India to the Sudan to reinforce the British forces there under Lieutenant General Sir William Platt, which had been attacked by Italian forces in Eritrea, at the time part of the Italian East African Empire. On the 10th of June 1940, before the arrival of the 5th Division, Platt had only 3 infantry battalions and the machine gun companies of the Sudan Defense Force. The 5th Division started to arrive in the Sudan in early September 1940 and absorbed Platt's 3 British infantry battalions and formed a 3rd Infantry Brigade. After these rearrangements, the division consisted of the 9th, 10th and 29th Indian Infantry Brigades. For the next 3 months the division was involved in a series of aggressive skirmishing operations to keep the Italian forces off balance and confused as to Platt's longer-term intentions. In early 1941, Platt's forces were further augmented by 4th Indian Infantry Infantry Division, rushed from the Western Desert after the breakthrough during Operation Compass, and an attack was launched into Eritrea on the 18th of January. The climax of the campaign was the Battle of Keren, a fiercely fought series of engagements against superior numbers which ended with victory for Platt's forces on the 1st of April. After Keren, 4th Indian Division was withdrawn to Cairo and 5th Indian Division continued the campaign in Eritrea, finally joining up with elements of Lieutenant General Alan Cunningham's forces, which had advanced north from Kenya to capture Italian Somaliland and the Italian capital of Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, to take the surrender of Prince Amadeo, Duke of Ulster, the Italian viceroy, at Amba Alagai, North Africa and the Middle East. 9 and 10 brigades of 5 Indian Division were newly stationed around Tobruk when Rommel's offensive against the Gazala line commenced at the end of May 1942. Fresh to the desert, just recently equipped with obsolete anti-tank guns and poor transport, they were ordered to counterattack the German breakthrough. The operation was badly mismanaged by the corps commander. Tank and artillery support failed to materialize, and casualties were crippling. Every one of the West York's officers who participated was killed or wounded. The remnants were withdrawn first to Mersa Matruh, then to the rudimentary defences at Alamein, where, reformed, they garrisoned the line, formed mobile shock columns and participated in successful counterattacks in the First Battle of El Alamein in July. After the Battle of El Amhafa in August, they were withdrawn to garrison duties in Iraq before being shipped to Burma in mid-1943. Burma Campaign. At the end of 1943, the division was taking part in the Burma Campaign. It was facing the Japanese 55th Division on the coastal flank of the Arakan Front. The defeat of the Japanese 55th Division, to which a large share of the credit must go to the Indian 5th Division, was the first decisive victory against the Japanese since they had invaded Burma 2 years previously. For the victory in the Arakan sector, the Indian 5th Infantry Division was airlifted to the Central Front. 161 Brigade joined 33rd Corps, which was beginning to arrive at Dimapur, and fought in the Battle of Kohima, while the remainder of the division reinforced 4th Corps, whose land victory at Kohima and Imphal, in which the division played an important part, proved to be the turning point of the Burma Campaign. Except for one period of rest and reorganization, the Indian 5th Division continued to fight and to advance throughout the rest of the war, and took part in the final thrust by 4th Corps down to Rangoon. Service after Burma. After service in Burma, the division was the first unit to be landed in Singapore as part of Operation Tide Race, and was later sent to Java as part of the Allied occupation of the Dutch East Indies. It saw heavy fighting during the Battle of Surabaya in November 1945. Formation during World War II. General Officer Commanding: Major General Lewis Heath, Major General Mosley Main, Brigadier Claude M. Valentin, Major General H.R. Briggs, Major General Jeffrey Evans, Brigadier Robert Manzurg, Major General Cameron Nicholson, Major General Dermot Warren, Brigadier Joseph A. Salomons, Major General Robert Manzurg. Headquarters: 1st Duke of York's Own Lancers. The Guides Cavalry. Royal Artillery. Commanders: Divisional Artillery, Brigadier Claude M. Valentin, Brigadier Robert Manzurg, Brigadier Jeffrey B. J. Kelly, Brigadier R. G. Loder Simmons, HQ 4th, 28th, and 144th Field Regiments, Royal Artillery 56th Anti-Tank Regiment, Royal Artillery, 24th Indian Mountain Regiment, Indian Artillery, Indian Engineers, Sappers and Miners 2nd and 74 Field Companies, King George V's own Bengal Sappers and Miners 20 Field Company, Royal Bombay Sappers and Miners, 44 Field Park Company, Queen Victoria's own Madras Sappers and Miners. 5th Indian Division Signals, Machine Gun Battalion, 17th Dogra Regiment, 9th Indian Infantry Brigade. Commanders: Brigadier Theophilus J. Ponting, Brigadier Mosley Main, Brigadier Frank Messervy, Brigadier Bernard Campbell Fletcher, Brigadier William H. Langren, Lieutenant Colonel Joseph A. Salamans, Brigadier Jeffrey Evans, Brigadier Joseph A. Salamans, Lieutenant Colonel K. Bailey, Brigadier Hubert G. L. Brain, HQ 2nd Battalion, West Yorkshire Regiment, 3rd Battalion, 5th Maratha Light Infantry, 3rd Battalion, 9th Jat Regiment, 3rd Royal Battalion, 12th Frontier Force Regiment, 3rd Battalion, 14th Punjab Regiment, 10th Indian Infantry Brigade. Commanders: Brigadier U.R.C. Lane, Brigadier William Slim, Lieutenant Colonel Bernard Campbell Fletcher, Brigadier Thomas Pete Rees, Brigadier Charles Hamilton Boucher, Brigadier Arthur Holworthy, Brigadier John A. Finley, Brigadier Terence N. Smith, HQ 1st Battalion, Essex Regiment, 2nd Battalion, Highland Light Infantry, 4th Battalion, 10th Balak Regiment, 3rd Battalion, 18th Royal Garhwal Rifles, 2nd Battalion, 4th Prince of Wales's Own Gurkha Rifles, 29th Indian Infantry Brigade. Commanders: Brigadier John Charles Oakes Marriott, Brigadier Dennis Whitehorn Reed, HQ 1st Battalion, Worcestershire Regiment, 3rd Battalion, 2nd Punjab Regiment, 1st Battalion, 5th Maratha Light Infantry, 6th Royal Battalion, 13th Frontier Force Rifles, 123rd Indian Infantry Brigade. Commanders: Brigadier Arthur Verney Hammond, Brigadier Thomas John Willoughby Winterton, Brigadier Jeffrey Evans, Brigadier Eric J. Denham Young, HQ 2nd Battalion, Suffolk Regiment, 2nd Battalion, 1st Punjab Regiment, 3rd Battalion, 2nd Punjab Regiment, 1st Battalion, 17th Dogra Regiment, 3rd Battalion, 9th Gurkha Rifles, 161st Indian Infantry Brigade. Commanders: Brigadier William Donovan Stamer, Brigadier Francis E. C. Hughes, Lieutenant Colonel D. Barker, Brigadier Dermot Warren, Brigadier Robert G. Seapool, Brigadier Ewing Grimshaw, HQ 4th Battalion, Queen's Own Royal West Kent Regiment, 1st Battalion, 1st Punjab Regiment, 4th Battalion, 7th Rajput Regiment, 3rd Battalion, 4th Prince of Wales's Own Gurkha Rifles, 2nd Field Company, KGVO Bengal Sappers and Miners. Support units: Royal Indian Army Service Corps 15th, 17th and 29th MT. Companies 20th, 60th, 74th and 82nd Animal Transport Companies, 238th, 239th and 240th GP Transport Companies. Composite issue units: Medical Services I, MSR, AM, CI, MDI, HCI, AM 10th, 21st, 45th and 75th Indian Field Ambulances, 5th Indian Division Provost Unit, Indian Army Ordnance Corps, 5th Indian Division Subpart, Indian Electrical and Mechanical Engineers, 112th, 113th and 123rd Infantry Workshop Companies, 5th Indian Division Recovery Company. Assigned brigades: all these brigades were assigned or attached to the division at some time during World War II. 7th Indian Infantry Brigade, 9th Indian Infantry Brigade, 10th Indian Infantry Brigade, 29th Indian Infantry Brigade, 5th Indian Infantry Brigade, 1st South African Infantry Brigade, British 161st Infantry Brigade, 161st Indian Infantry Brigade, 11th Indian Infantry Brigade, 1st Free French Infantry Brigade, 2nd Free French Infantry Brigade, 18th Indian Infantry Brigade, 7th Armoured Brigade, 123rd Indian Infantry Brigade, 89th Indian Infantry Brigade, Lashkar Brigade, 33rd Indian Infantry Brigade.